All right. Hey, what's up? This is Ron, and I am the first vice president for HDTA. Here with me is
John Minkus, president of HDTA.
And our goal today is to briefly explain what the salary schedule looks like and try to unlock some of the mysteries of the salary schedule so you better understand your paycheck and why you're getting paid what you're getting paid. So, John, I think the first thing we talked about was just wanted to show it kind of the old system, right? So this seems to make way more sense, step and column, where columns are actually columns, right? This is the one that we had right before our most recent contract negotiation. So these are the old numbers before we got our recent 10% increase. So the columns represent your education level, and then the steps represent how long you have been in the district, right? So they're years. And so that all used to make sense because steps were rows and columns were columns. But then we had to change, right? So
Correct.
the county, in order to make it consistent across the board for all school districts in Los Angeles County, they switched to this, which is a little bit more convoluted, but we're going to try to explain that. So now the columns are actually, so it's almost like if you would turn this on its side, then it would look the same as this one here. And so we're going to try to unlock this. So these are now the columns which represent your level of education, right? So a lot of like brand new teachers just starting out, if you don't have a master's degree yet, then you're in column 1. As we accumulate more units, more professional advancement units, or you get your master's degree, or you get your PhD, for example, you would move along the columns, but now the columns are these rows here. And then the steps still represent those years. Am I good so far?
Correct.
Okay, so we get paid more based on your columns, which are your level of education, and then your steps, which is how long you've been in the district, and then finally there's this thing called increments. So increments, John, if I understand this correctly, you can get increments in a few different ways, and let me go ahead and zoom in here. Whoa. So you get an anniversary increment. So starting at 10 years, and then 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and my goodness, if you are working past 45 years, then that's a lot.
So may I
yeah,
add
go ahead.
there, anniversary increments are only for service within the district. So if you have come from another district, you start at 0 on anniversary increments. And at this point, anniversary increments are credited in years 11, 16, 21, etc. So you would not receive that payment until the beginning of your 11th, etc. year.
Got it. So if I'm currently in my 27th year of teaching right now, then once I conclude my 30th year, I've finished 30 years, then I would start to receive that credit in year 31.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. So you get an increment for those anniversary increments in the Hart District. You get an increment for a master's degree, and currently under our contract, you only get credit for 1 master's. A lot of our teachers have 2 masters, but that's something that could be negotiated for, and we've pushed for that in the past.
Correct.
So if we want to keep pushing, we can keep pushing for that as well. You get a separate increment for a PhD. So if you have a master's and later go back for your PhD, then those would be 2 separate increments. You get an increment for being a nationally board certified teacher, and then finally you would also get an increment credit for specific SPED programs according to, in the contract language, A112, which is, if we go to the contract and we click here, we're in our brand new HDTA website, by the way. If you go into the contract, and this contract is loading slowly, but if you scroll down to A12, oh, it's actually right down here. I can show you right here. Right here, A.1.12. Any of these programs here, very specific SPED programs, those would also get an increment. Okay, so to give an example, let's say, for example, John, if I were, let's say that I've just completed my 11th year of teaching, right? Or I'm sorry, let me say I'm in year 11, right? And let's say that I have this level of education. Let's say that I'm right here. And so year 11, and then, so that's my base, right? So that's what I start with.
Correct.
And because I'm in my 11th year of teaching, let's say I've done all 11 years in the Hart District, so I would get 1 increment for my 10 years of service. And then let's say I have my master's degree, so then I would get an additional increment added on for my master's. And let's say I'm also nationally board certified, then I would get that 3rd increment for being nationally board certified. So in total, to calculate your salary, if you were this example teacher, then you would get this dollar amount right here, plus 3 additional increments, so 28.29 times 3. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Also, we're dropping in a video within a video because I think it's also important to mention that sometimes the question is, well, what happens after year 13? Like, why do we not have step 14 and 15 and 27 and 35? Because after we hit year 13, then those steps are replaced, they're supplanted by anniversary increments. And I think, if I explained this correctly to another colleague recently, I think the theory behind that, John, is that once we get to a certain point, it's sort of like you're settled in, right? Like we're going to try to get us paid as much as we can up to year 13, but then the increases, the salary increases slow down after that, right? And this is pretty consistent in school districts across California, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Where after a certain time, instead of continuing with steps every single year, it's then replaced with these anniversary increments, which add up, which compound on one another, right? So
Yes.
your year 10 increment is compounded by your year 15 and 20 and 25 and so on. And so instead of getting a step every single year, you then, after year 13, you're just getting those anniversary increments, correct?
Correct. The
Okay.
philosophy behind it is that we want to get every person as much money as we can as early as possible in your career. Thus, we end at year 13. It's called compacting the salary schedule.
Okay, as opposed to like spreading it out.
That's why we don't have extra years. Now, we can add extra years, but everything costs. And so it would be adding more to the pay scale, which affects the amount of money there to negotiate.
And then finally, John, I think we also wanted to insert in here in this discussion how we're talking a lot about, because most of our members are on this salary schedule right here, the teacher nurse salary schedule, but there are other salary schedules as well where the numbers are a little bit different, right? So, for example, obviously counselors, those. And they don't even, if you look like, we don't have those, but the increments are the same for counselors currently, right?
Correct. So we have asked the district to include the labeling for increment, step, and column on all salary schedules.
For all of these.
Some
Okay.
of them have them, some of them don't. Most of the increments are the same across the board. We do have psychologists have their own pay scale, which is different, and their increment, step, and column is different.
Okay. All right. So I think that was just the only other thing that we wanted to point out was just explaining explaining what happens after year 13, and then also the school psychologist contract. The increments are a little bit different because they had a separately negotiated contract.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And so now back to the rest of the regular video. Thanks. And then, so that's the increment level. And then the step level here, that is the same as the increment level. So at least this is for teachers. Those steps are different for some of our other members, right? Our teacher librarians, for our counselors, those steps are different, but increments are the same currently across the board.
Correct. They're all based on 5% of step 1, column 1.
Okay. And then finally, John, you were talking, because if we go back to our HDTA website, and if we were to click on any of these, all the salary schedules are available depending on the type of member you are. If you click there, these are all the resources that were shared from the district. We simply link to the documents the district has. But John, you were saying that they currently have the column wrong, and they still need to fix that.
Yes, I spoke with payroll yesterday, and the 2829 number in the column row should be 3775 in the teacher salary schedule.
Great. And you could verify that, right? For example, as long as you're comparing apples to apples, if you're going up a column. So if you take the year 9 column 4, for example, and you subtract the column 5 year 9, if you take this minus this, that should be that 3775 number.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. All right. So John, we've kind of talked about steps and columns. We've talked about increments. Is there anything else we're going to talk about for this video here?
At this point, no. We want to simplify this down to people, and enable you to be able to calculate what you should be making. Your check stubs will come shortly. At that point, we can answer more questions as they arise. Invariably, there will be some sort of error on somebody's paycheck, and we will work with it then. But please take a look at your paycheck, and we are going to follow this video with a video on how to read your pay stubs, as there are issues within those that we've heard. But at this point, the top left part of your pay stub will identify your normal salary, not additional items. And that number should be that, as here we see in step 11, or excuse me, year 11, column 4, we see 90,511 circled. We would add our increments, and that would be the number that comes in your top left normal pay.
Normal monthly salary,
Yes.
not including stipends, not including any professional development you've attended or any other meetings that you've attended. That is simply your base plus increments.
Correct. And then you would divide that number by the number of months that you are receiving your paycheck, which at this point for teachers is 11 or 12. I believe everybody has the option of 11 or 12.
I believe we still do. I'm a 12-month employee.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you would divide that number by either 11 or 12, whichever you receive your pay in.
Great.
And that would give you your number.
All right. So I think this is it for our video messages until spring break, and then after spring break we'll come back and kind of do a little bit more of a breakdown on how to read your pay stub and make it so that you are an informed member of HDTA, and we'll make sure we that everybody is getting paid what they should be paid.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you. Have a great spring break, and we'll see you back again with more, hopefully some helpful tips. Take care. Bye-bye.